going to speak in English. My name is Daphne Becket. Good morning. And I'm an architect. I couldn't find a girl architect in the cartoons. They all had miniskirts and stiletto heels, so that's me for the moment. I'm here to talk about some of the choices that I have made and the consequences they had, and what I have learned about the power that every single one of us has to influence the world around us. I was born into a family in which working for, whoops, sorry, we're going a bit too fast here. I was born into a family in which working for the common cause, and this is not working. Hang on, sorry. I'll start again. I was born in a family in which working for the cause of the common good was the main guiding principle. Our responsibility simply because we are alive. That's what you do, and when you do it to the best of your ability. Now, sorry. I'm not doing this to the best of my ability, but I'll manage. Here we go. So I grew up in Switzerland during the years of the military junta in Greece. My home was invaded with piles of papers, newspaper clippings, visitors, people who came and talked with my parents, discussions about the suffering of the Greek people at the hands of the military junta, the loss of freedom, human rights, torture, the political games that were played by the big, at the time, two big nations, and how they affected people's lives. Oops, one sec. My bedroom, to my great annoyance, was used as a meeting room. Quite frequently, I'd go in and there were people talking, and they were supposed not to meet the people that were in the living room. There was all this cross thing, all in our apartment. And behind all this talk, there was very intense activity. Behind papers and words came real action. At first, it started with pamphlet distribution, not by me. I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And it stretched all the way over the years to secret operations to get prisoners out of jail in Greece, and even plans for armed resistance and overthrowing the generals. I remember contributing to a conversation one day. As I say, I was about 4 or 5, and I said, I could take some flowers and give it to the dictator and it would blow up in his face because it's explosives. So it was a pretty active family. So sometimes this struggle played itself out on the world stage, and Greece was humiliated at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. They were found guilty of torturing, very guilty of torturing their own people. Greece resigned and left the European Commission, which started the economic downfall, and it lost a part of the United States' support. Most people agree that it's my mother, step by step, that pushed what they called the Greek case into the Human Rights Court, always behind stages, never wanting fame or acknowledgement. In fact, when the Greeks resigned from the Human Rights Commission, Pipinelis, who I think was foreign minister at the time, walked out of the court. My mother was outside at the top of the stairs, and he said, "This is all your fault." So this is my mother. And my father wrote the report on torture and did all the research. And he's American, and he came to this country and interviewed torture victims and produced this book. So together my parents fought. They did many surprising, unexpected, even dangerous things. They've devoted all their time to the resistance against this cancer that had invaded my mother's land. But it was not always like a Hollywood spy thriller. You think, oh, they did all these things. My mother used to tell me a wonderful story. She had to pass a secret message because they were going to come into the country to try and free. In fact, I think it was Milonas from Amorgos. And you couldn't speak on the telephone, you couldn't write. So she said she bought a box of chocolates. We lived in Switzerland. She unwrapped every single chocolate and wrote the message, the secret message, in the back of all the wrappers, and then closed everything up again, wrapped it as a gift, sent it to the people that the message was supposed to go to, and then she called them and said, "Oh, did you receive my gift?" And they'd received it, they'd eaten the chocolates and thrown the box away. So it's not always like Hollywood. But my point is basically this was done by people who had never done anything like this before, and more they got involved, even risking their own lives, working behind the stages, never expecting anything in return. but they could do it. Once the junta fell, my parents used their experience to help other countries struggle for democracy: Cyprus, Turkey, South Africa, Chile, and so on. I think once you start, you can't really stop. Finally, my mother, tired of politicians because they would work for democracy, and then the politicians would come in and pretty much fail to create the dream that my parents had. They were more concerned about electability. I call it delectability. She turned her energies to the protection of the environment, who was being tortured, of course, but no court at the time was willing to defend it. So that is where she went. That's another story. What was etched in my mind, a child's mind of those early days, is the certainty that something can be done always and by anyone if you put your mind to it, if you have the courage and the imagination to do it. But I was a child. What I experienced were parents that were always busy saving the world. How can you complain about that? But there was nobody to play with me. And the house was always full of people, and I didn't really care about their issues. Oops, sorry. So I decided, I made my choice. I would not be involved in that world. I would have no politics, no activism. I just wanted to be an architect, to make things. Oops, sorry. What happened there? That's me again, sorry. So I just wanted to make things. Really, what I wanted to do was to play, and that's a fantastic profession for that purpose. So I studied, I taught, and I worked in England, then the United States, in Asia, the Middle East. Sorry, I keep using the wrong one. I stuck to my guns. I happily minded my own business and my architecture, and that was it. Then I came to Greece, and I worked on 2 jobs. So the first one, which you heard about with the presentation, I was involved in the restoration of 3 windmills in Patmos. They belonged to the monastery. I was the lead architect. What is meant to me by lead architect is that you have the overall responsibility for the project. You have to know who's doing what, exactly where, at what time, and you have to coordinate everybody together. So you're the sort of pot of glue of the project. But beyond that, you're responsible for the spirit of the project, the initial, the spark, as they call it, for the NTUA. Sorry. So that's what I do. You protect this vision and you nurture that spirit. I'm not going to describe the project, although it's a fantastic project. I'll just show you some pictures because they're pretty. We did a documentary that describes the construction, and I think it's going to be shown during one of the break, but I'm not sure you'll have sound on it. But I highly recommend it. It's a great documentary. That's our finished product. So these windmills were really a dream project. Win-win. First winners were the monastery. They owned the windmills. Then the Patmos as a people, they were very enthusiastic. The sponsors who financed this. And also the restoration team, the design team. We were all winners. Even Greece was a winner because we were awarded a Europa Nostra prize, which was for outstanding achievement in the conservation, enhancement, and adaptation to new uses of cultural heritage. That's a mouthful. But why did we get such success? I mean, there's many, many projects. Why did it go so well? I can see 3 main reasons. The first is the idea. This is Charles Pictet. It was his idea to restore the windmills. He has been sailing the oceans of Greece for years, and he feels that he has received so much from the Greek people and from the Greek land. He's Swiss, by the way. So he wanted to give something back. So these windmills were his gift, and also a mark of trust, because the project happened when Greece was sinking into its financial disarray, and it was a mark of trust at the same time that everybody else was being critical. So we have this fantastic honoring of the gods of wind, honoring of the country, and the intention is wonderful to bring windmills back into production. So we met, he explained his vision, and he described it as a dreamer's folly. And I took him to Patmos, where I knew these windmills needed restoring, and our adventure started. Fortunately, he is not only an inspired poet, he's also a banker, because the second thing you need is money. So he gathered his Greek friends, also financiers, business people, and all together they made it happen. To me, the third most important element in this project and why it was so successful was the collaboration. So the design team and the construction team, they understood the spirit of the project. They went with it, and we really, really worked very well together. But most importantly, it was the local community who continues to this day to be very proud and enthusiastic about the project. They gave us full support, and they ensure that the chain reaction that we started is continued into the future. We've been giving classes to some of the locals, and by doing this, we've restored not only the buildings, but also the ancient craft of the miller. And now, we're producing flour again. So the dream came true, and the chain reaction is that now people are planting wheat again. The bakers are using our flour to make the bread, and the discussion is ongoing, and it's involving food safety, the preservation of original grains, and even sustainable energy production, which is the next step of that project. So it's working. At the same time, I was running a project on an extraordinary site in northern Greece. It's a project to restore an old historic mansion, which you see here. Like the windmills, it's an important part of the cultural heritage of its area. It's a listed building. Like the windmills, it was abandoned and in a very shabby state. Hang on. There, that's how we found it. Sorry. And here it is, partially restored to its new life. So the purpose of this is to have it, apart from an occasional summer home or for rental, for some revenue, is to have it as a venue for environmental and cultural workshops. We're thinking of it as a base for a think tank that would develop ideas to do with the environment into actual policies that can be proposed for the future, and that it would become a magnet for environmentalists to come to this region. The reason it was chosen is that it has a perfect setting. Oops, sorry. There we go. It's one of the last few beaches that has remained virgin and natural in the area, and it's protected by every possible law you could think of, national and European. And it's very peaceful, and it has its own restorative powers. Here you see it from the other way around. It's close to a little village. So, a wonderful project. Also, that region is an agricultural region, and so we wanted to apply some of the ideas that we had learned in the windmills, so we could test strategies related to food safety and produce some organic cultivation at a bigger scale than Patmos. But in this case, the story took a different turn when it came to collaboration. The local municipality did not support the project. They believed it was against their best interest and their vision of the future. Whoops, sorry. Yeah. What they would like to do is to make the beach commercially successful and lucrative in the usual way, the way that we're used to now in Greece, with the same formula that has been spread across the country. It's what they call an organized beach, which has umbrellas, chaiselong, drinks, music. The sand is rented by the square meter. And in our case, unfortunately, cars are brought in with all of the destruction that they bring with them. So in came the bulldozers, and they opened it. That was the first motion, was to open a road to allow the cars onto the beach. No permits, no consultation of the community, nothing. Flying in the face of all the regulations and the protection measures that were effective, supposedly. And this is how the transformation of the beach began into a driveway. You see the car in the middle, also some electric poles. So what did I do? I did what any logical person would do. To protect what I consider our national assets, I stopped the bulldozer. That did not go down well at all. At all. They didn't like it. I had a storm of lawsuits, libelous accusations, nasty personal threats, vandalism on the building, gossip, of course. You name it, I got it all. I was amazed because what I thought was logical, a no-brainer, became so explosive. I had crossed swords with the local power structures and their profit margins, or at least their imagined profit margins. Sorry. I'll get the hang of this by the end. So I had started a battle with what I would call the underbelly of today's Greek culture. I had threats. I was called by all these people in the municipality, and they said, oh, you think you have power, we will show you, and we're going to complain to the polyodomia, and we're going to complain here and there, which they all did, and we're still dragging our feet through the courts. I had never been to a lawyer's office or to a court before coming to Greece, but I was very rapidly introduced to this popular national sport that is played here all over the land. There seems to be a parallel universe in Greece in which the justice system is used or abused to threaten and bully and slow down anybody who basically doesn't agree with you. I joke that laws here only apply to those who respect them. Anyway, comparing this to the windmills project is very interesting to me. Like Patmos, we had the idea, the inspiration, the vision was there. Like Patmos, the funds were in place. But unlike Patmos, the local community did not collaborate with it. So you can see how important it is. The chain reaction that this set off was therefore of quite a different nature. Atomic bombs were chain reactions as well. But I ask you, what is Greece's most valuable asset if not her natural beauty? The beaches, the forests, the mountains, the rocks, the sea. Why do people come here? It's an important part of our economy. There are ways to develop commercially and preserve, even enhance the natural environment at the same time, but bulldozers are not part of that scenario. So enough with chaotic development, enough with building higgledy-piggledy without permits. Either respect it, change the laws, do something. Enough mainly about personal gain over community benefit. So we continue our battle, dragging from court to court in order to complete this project because we believe in it. We believe that it will be a catalyst for positive change. One day, I asked my mother in the middle of all of this, Mama, τι έχω κάνει στο Θεό? Mother, what have I done to God to provoke this storm of evil? All I'm trying to do is to protect what needs protecting. It seems so obvious to me. Sorry. I'm giving you a preview of every image before the image I pull. You'd be way ahead of me. So she smiled. Obviously, you heard her history. And she said, Kuklamu, if you wish for a peaceful life, you must stay in your kitchen and not get involved with anything beyond your family. If, on the other hand, you want to defend the rights of people or the rights of nature, what you believe in, you will run smack against big, powerful interests, and you must expect to be attacked like you are now. You need to make your choices, knowing that there will be consequences. So why does one choose to oppose? Why does one insist on one's vision, despite the violence it can generate? All the threats that I've received, for example. Why? Why bother? Why make this choice? Why do we step into the role of an activist? The windmills were a very challenging project, an adventure, but the choices were very easy. The mansion project, on the other hand, because it started a war over this beach, it brought a very different challenge. Could I let things happen that I disagreed with without reacting? Obviously not. It just took a split second and I went and stopped the bulldozers. I knew my world had changed that day. I chose to act and to defend what I believe in. There will be a backlash, of course. Time had come for me to make my choice. To be of the world or not. My mother was right and it was time. Sorry, again. What has become clear to me is that we're called upon to make choices like this, even architects. At some point, and to different degrees, suited to our temperament and capabilities. But if we want to have some part in forming the world that we live in, we have to choose to act. We can't sit on the couch and complain, or stop complaining. But you can't complain about how things are. We can choose, all of us, to be powerful. What your choices are determine who you are and what your world will look like. So who will build the world you want to see around you, the one you want to live in, the one that you can be proud of? Who else but you? Also, I know and I'm aware that I speak to you as the community of the Polytechnical School, who one generation ago, actually probably a little more, rose up in defense of the nation and changed the history of Greece. So I ask you, who else but you? I'm an architect, and that's what I do. Thank you.